The engine died without warning. One moment, the cargo vessel starward bound was cruising through the darkness of the outer reach. The next moment, every light on the bridge flickered and went dark. The ship drifted in silence, spinning slowly in the endless void between stars. Captain Danny Vance gripped his chair as emergency power kicked in. Red lights bathed the bridge in a dim glow. Around him, his crew scrambled to their stations. Their faces tight with fear they were trying hard to hide. "Report," Danny said, keeping his voice calm. Lieutenant Maria Santos worked her console with shaking fingers. "Main engine is gone, Captain. Completely burned out. Backup systems are failing. We have life support for maybe 6 days. Maybe less." Danny closed his eyes for a moment. The outer reach was the worst possible place for this to happen. It was a lawless stretch of space where pirates hunted and no one answered distress calls. Ships that broke down here simply disappeared. Their crews were never found. "Send out a distress signal anyway," Danny ordered. "Maybe someone will surprise us." Maria nodded, though her eyes said she did not believe it. She sent the signal into the void. Then they waited. Hours passed. The crew sat in silence, watching their oxygen levels slowly drop. Some wrote messages to their families, recording final words that might never be delivered. Others prayed to gods from a dozen different Earth religions. Danny walked among them, putting his hand on shoulders, offering what comfort he could. He did not tell them that he had already made peace with death. He was 34 years old, and he had always known that space might take him one day. He just wished his crew did not have to die with him. On the second day, Maria's console beeped. She stared at it for a long moment, not believing what she saw. Then she turned to Danny with wide eyes. "Captain, there is a ship approaching. They received our signal. They are coming." Danny rushed to her side. On the screen, he could see the vessel approaching. It was not human. The design was angular and strange, covered in sharp edges that gleamed like polished stone. He recognized the style immediately. "Velthari," he whispered. Maria's face went pale. The Velthari were known throughout the galaxy for their cold logic and complete lack of emotion. They were an insectoid species with hard shells and multiple eyes that saw everything and felt nothing. They did not help others. They did not believe in charity or kindness. Every action they took was calculated for maximum benefit to themselves. "They will not help us," Maria said quietly. "They have nothing to gain." But the Velthari ship did not turn away. It came closer, matching speed with the drifting starward bound. A moment later, a communication request appeared on the screen. Danny answered it. The face that appeared was not human in any way. Counselor Crickstal had a head like a mantis, with large compound eyes that reflected the light in 1,000 tiny fragments. Thin antennae twitched above a mouth that moved in strange ways when it spoke. "Human vessel," Crickstal said. "We have received your distress signal. What is your situation?" Danny explained quickly. "Dead engine. Failing life support. 19 crew members who would die in days if they did not receive help." Crickstal was silent for a long moment. The antennae twitched again. Danny could not read any emotion on that alien face. He did not know if the Velthari even had emotions to read. "We are a medical frigate on urgent mission," Crickstal finally said. "Stopping to help you will cost us time and resources. There is no logical reason to assist." Danny felt his heart sink. He had expected this. The Velthari were exactly what everyone said they were. But then Crickstal spoke again. "However, we will help anyway. Prepare to receive our engineering team." Danny blinked. He was sure he had heard wrong. "I am sorry. Did you say you will help us?" "I did." Cricksdale's compound eyes seemed to study him through the screen. "Do not ask me to explain. I do not fully understand it myself. Perhaps it is a malfunction in my reasoning. My superiors will certainly think so. Regardless, we are coming. For 3 days, Valkyrie engineers crawled through the starward bound. They worked without rest, their insectoid bodies needing less sleep than humans. They used their own supplies to repair the human engine. They shared their own food when the human rations ran low. They asked for nothing in return. On the 3rd day, the engine hummed back to life. The lights returned to full power. The starward bound was whole again. Danny found Crystal in the corridor before the Valkyrie returned to their own ship. He struggled to find the right words. "Thank you," he finally said. "I do not know how to repay you. You saved all of our lives. We would have died out here." Crystal made a gesture with one clawed hand. It might have been a shrug. It was a minor inconvenience. "Think nothing of it. We require no payment. But I want to repay you," Danny insisted. "Please, tell me what you need. Tell me what I can do." Those compound eyes studied him again. "You humans are strange creatures. You place great weight on small things. This was nothing. We helped because we chose to help. The matter is closed." The Valkyrie left. Their ship pulled away and jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing into the stars. Danny watched them go from the bridge of the starward bound. Maria stood beside him. "They really wanted nothing," she said softly. "They just helped us and left." "Yes," Danny replied. "But that does not mean the debt does not exist." He walked to his console and began typing. His fingers moved with purpose. Maria watched him with confusion. "What are you doing, Captain?" "Filing an incident report," Danny said. "I am recording everything that happened here. The Valkyrie ship, Counselor Crystal, the repairs they made, the supplies they gave us, every detail. Why? They said the matter was closed." Danny stopped typing and looked at her. His eyes were serious in a way she had never seen before. "The Valkyrie may consider the matter closed, but we are human, and humans do not forget when someone saves their lives. We remember. We always remember. One day, we will repay this debt. I do not know when. I do not know how, but we will." He filed the report with Earth's diplomatic corps. It joined thousands of other records in a vast archive that humanity kept of every kindness ever shown to them by alien species far across the galaxy. Counselor Crystal returned to their homeworld and faced harsh criticism from their superiors. They were called foolish. They were called illogical. They had wasted resources on primitive creatures who would probably die in some other disaster soon enough. Crystal accepted the criticism without argument. They were certain they would never see those humans again. The entire incident would be forgotten within a generation. The Valkyrie did not understand. They could not understand, because the Valkyrie did not know what humans knew deep in their bones, in their blood, in every cell of their being. Humans never forget a favor, and one day the galaxy would learn what that truly meant. The hollow came from the darkness between galaxies. No one knew where they originated. No one knew why they destroyed everything they touched. They were living nightmares, creatures of shadow and hunger that consumed entire worlds and left nothing behind but dust and silence. 10,000 years ago, the hollow had nearly destroyed the Silurians. The ancient war had lasted for centuries and cost billions of lives. The Silurians had driven them back into the void, but the victory had broken something inside the oldest species in the galaxy. They had never fully recovered. Now the hollow had returned. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Liberty, and watched the tactical display with growing horror. The Silurian homeworld was surrounded. 300 hollow vessels hung in space like black teeth, slowly closing in. The Silurian defense fleet had been shattered in the first hours of the attack. Only fragments remained, scattered and burning. The Silurians are requesting emergency assistance from the Galactic Collective, his communications officer reported. The vote is happening now. Nathan already knew how the vote would go. He had studied galactic politics for 30 years. He understood how species thought, how they calculated, how they protected their own interests above all else. The vote came in within the hour. The Galactic Collective had decided to quarantine Silurian space. No ships would be allowed in or out. No assistance would be sent. The ancient species would face the Hollow alone. The official explanation was strategic. The Hollow were too dangerous to engage directly. Better to contain the threat and hope it burned itself out. Better to sacrifice one species than risk war with an enemy that had destroyed civilizations in the past. Nathan read the vote results and felt something cold settle in his chest. The Silurians were being abandoned. The galaxy was going to watch them die and do nothing. But humanity had not voted with the majority. Humanity had been the sole dissenting voice. President Sandra Mills appeared on his screen. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She had grown up on a colony world that had faced its own disasters. She knew what it felt like to be abandoned. "Admiral Cole," she said quietly, "you know what I am going to ask." Nathan nodded. "I do, Madam President. The Third Fleet is our largest military force. If we send it to Silurian space, we will be defying the Collective. We will be alone against an enemy that has destroyed empires. We might lose everything. I understand." Sandra was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. In the year 2901, humanity faced the Crimson Plague. Our doctors could not stop it. Our scientists could not cure it. 3 billion people were dying, and we had no hope. Nathan knew this story. Every human knew this story. The Silurians sent us their entire medical archive, Sandra continued. 10,000 years of research, freely given. They shared knowledge they had guarded for millennia. They asked for nothing in return. They simply wanted to help. She paused. 3 billion lives, Admiral. They saved 3 billion human lives. Nathan looked at the tactical display. The Hollow Fleet was closing in. The Silurians had hours left, maybe less. He thought about the odds. He thought about the cost. He thought about what it meant to be human. "The Third Fleet is ready, Madam President," he said. "Give the order, and we will jump to Silurian space within the hour." Sandra closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, there were tears on her cheeks. "Go," she said simply. "Go and repay our debt." The jump to Silurian space took 17 minutes. When the Third Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, they found themselves facing a nightmare. The Hollow ships were unlike anything Nathan had ever seen. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in patterns that made no sense, turning and spinning in ways that defied physics. They were beautiful and terrible, like predators from a fever dream. The Silurians saw the human fleet arrive and could not believe it. Remembrancer Youth, the last surviving elder of the Silurian archive, stood on the bridge of a crippled defense station and watched the human ship spread in the battle formation. "They came," Yith whispered. "After the Collective abandoned us, the humans came." Nathan opened a channel to the entire fleet. His voice was steady, though his heart was pounding. "All ships, this is Admiral Cole. We are here to defend our friends. The Silurians saved 3 billion of our people when we had no hope. Today, we return the favor. All ships, engage the enemy." The battle lasted for 3 days. Human ships threw themselves at the Hollow with a fury that shocked both sides. They fought with precision and courage, covering each other, sacrificing themselves to protect damaged vessels, pushing the Nightmare Fleet back step by step. The Hollow had never encountered resistance like this. They were ancient predators who had always faced prey that fled or surrendered. They did not understand creatures who stood and fought. They did not understand beings who died for others. On the second day, Nathan's flagship took a direct hit. The Liberty's engines failed, and the ship began to drift toward the hollow line. 3 other human vessels immediately moved to cover it, taking damage that should have been the Liberty's. "What are you doing?" Nathan shouted into his communicator. "Fall back. Save yourselves." The captain of one of the covering ships responded calmly. "We do not abandon our own admiral, and we do not abandon our friends. We remember what the Silurians did for us. We will remember this too." On the third day, the tide turned. The Hollow had lost too many ships. Their formation broke. Their advance became a retreat. The Nightmare fleet pulled back from Silurian space and vanished into the darkness they had come from. The battle was over. The Silurians had survived, but the cost was terrible. 40% of Earth's third fleet had been destroyed. Thousands of human lives had been lost. Ships that had taken decades to build were now scattered wreckage drifting through space. Remembrancer Yith came aboard what remained of the Liberty to meet Admiral Cole. The ancient Silurian moved slowly, their body bent with age and grief, their eyes filled with wonder. "You came," Yith said again. "You defied the collective. You lost so many of your own. Why? Why would you sacrifice so much for us?" Nathan was exhausted. He had not slept in 3 days. He had watched friends die on his tactical display. He had given orders that sent good people to their deaths. But when he answered, his voice was clear and certain. "You saved us first," he said simply. "When we were dying and had no hope, you gave us everything we needed to survive. You asked for nothing. You expected nothing. You simply helped because it was the right thing to do." Youth trembled. That was so long ago. We had almost forgotten. Nathan shook his head. "We did not forget. We never forget." The old Silurian looked at this human, this creature from a young species that had only been among the stars for a few centuries. They saw something in Nathan's eyes that they had not seen in any other species in 10,000 years of life. They saw loyalty. They saw gratitude. They saw a soul that remembered its debts and paid them no matter the cost. "How will your people remember this day?" Yith asked quietly. Nathan smiled. It was a Tive smile, but it was real. "We have already filed the paperwork. Your people saved ours once. Now we are even." He paused. "But if you ever need us again, Remembrancer, we will come. We will always come." Yith reached out and touched the human's hand. It was a gesture of connection, of bond, of something that words could not capture. "We will remember," Yith promised. "From this day forward, the Silurians will remember. We will be like you, Admiral Cole. We will carry our debts with us, and we will repay them no matter how long it takes." Nathan squeezed the ancient hand gently. "That is all we ask. That is all we have ever asked. Just remember." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. Every species heard what humanity had done. They had defied the collective. They had risked everything. They had saved the people that everyone else had abandoned. And when asked why, the humans gave the same answer they always gave. The same answer they had been giving for centuries. "They helped us once. We do not forget." The galaxy was watching. The galaxy was learning. And slowly, one species at a time, the galaxy was beginning to remember. 47 years had passed since the starward bound drifted helpless in the outer reach. Captain Danny Vance had grown old and died peacefully on Earth, surrounded by his grandchildren. Lieutenant Maria Santos had become an admiral and then retired to write her memoirs. The crew of that small cargo ship had scattered across human space, living their lives, raising families, and telling stories of the strange Velthari who had saved them for no reason at all. But the file remained. The incident report sat in Earth's diplomatic archives, gathering digital dust but never deleted. Never forgotten. On the Velthari homeworld of Sketh Prime, disaster struck without warning. A massive solar flare burst from their sun. It was larger than any recorded in Velthari history. The radiation waves swept across the planet, and while the Velthari themselves survived in their underground cities, their agricultural domes did not. The transparent shells that protected their food crops cracked and shattered. Within days, 90% of their food production was destroyed. The Velthari faced starvation. Elder Vexnari stood before the council of their people and delivered the grim news. They were an old Velthari. Their shell faded to gray with age, their compound eyes clouded at the edges. They had led their people for 30 years, and now they might watch them die. "We must appeal to the Galactic Collective for aid," Vexnari announced. "We cannot survive this alone." The appeal went out. The Velthari, who had never asked anyone for anything, now begged the galaxy for help. The responses came slowly, and they were not encouraging. The Rithani hegemony offered to sell food at triple the normal price. The Kovathi Federation sent a small shipment of expired grain that was barely edible. The Deshan Empire expressed sympathy, but explained that they had their own problems to deal with. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy turned away from the dying. Velthari, Vexnari watched the responses, come in and felt something they had never experienced. The four, despair. The Velthari had spent millennia being logical, being cold, being practical. They had never built friendships with other species. They had never earned loyalty or love. Now, when they needed help most, they discovered that no one cared if they lived or died. Then the human ambassador requested an urgent meeting. Ambassador Kevin Park was a small man with gray hair and kind eyes. He walked into the Velthari council chamber with a data pad in his hands and a strange expression on his face. The expression was difficult for the Velthari to read, but if they had known humans better, they would have recognized it as determination. "We received your appeal for aid," Kevin said simply. Earth would like to respond. Vexnari bowed their head. They expected another rejection, perhaps a small token gift that would mean nothing. "We appreciate any assistance the humans can offer. We know we have no claim on your generosity." Kevin smiled. "Actually, you do." He placed his datapad on the table and activated the display. An old document appeared on the screen. It was yellowed with age, the format outdated by decades. Vexnari leaned forward, their clouded eyes struggling to read the words. It was an incident report from 47 years ago. A human cargo ship called Starbound bound, a rescue in the outer reach, a Velthari counselor named Crixto. Vexnari went very still. "Crixto," they whispered. "That was my parent." Kevin nodded. "We know. We have kept track of their family line ever since. Your parents saved 19 human lives. They used their own supplies. They asked for nothing in return. They called it a minor inconvenience." The ambassador paused. His voice grew soft but firm. "The humans who were saved that day are all dead now. But before they died, they told their children what happened. And their children told their children. The story has been passed down for generations. And now, Elder Vexnari, it is time for us to repay our debt." Vexnari stared at the human. "What do you mean?" Kevin straightened his shoulders. "Earth is sending 17 agricultural ships to your world. They will arrive within the week. We are also sending 300 terraforming specialists to help rebuild your domes. And we have prepared enough synthetic grain to feed your entire population for 2 years." The council chamber fell silent. The Velthari representatives looked at each other in confusion. This made no sense. This was not how the galaxy worked. Species did not give away resources without expecting something in return. "Why?" Vexnari asked. "We have nothing to offer you. We cannot pay for this. We cannot repay such generosity." Kevin shook his head. You already paid, Elder, 47 years ago. Your parents saved our people when they had no reason to. They showed mercy to strangers in the dark. We do not forget such things. We never forget. Tears are impossible for Velthari. Their biology does not allow for it. But something happened to Vexnari in that moment. Their body shook. Their antennae trembled. A sound came from their throat that no Velthari had ever made in public before. They were weeping. In their own way, in their own alien manner, they were crying. My parent told me about that day, Vexnari said, their voice breaking. They spoke of it often. Their superiors punished them for wasting resources. Their colleagues mocked them for their foolishness. But my parent never regretted it. They said that helping those humans felt right, even if they could not explain why. I thought they were simply old and confused. Kevin walked around the table and placed his hand on Vexnari's shoulder. It was a human gesture of comfort. The Velthari did not know what it meant, but they felt its warmth anyway. Your parent was not confused, Kevin said gently. Your parent was kind, and kindness is never wasted. Sometimes it just takes a while for the universe to balance the scales. News of Earth's response spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species heard the story. Every government analyzed the data. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had committed an enormous portion of their resources to saving a species that could offer them nothing in return. The analysts of the Rithani hegemony studied the situation with growing confusion. They ran calculations. They built models. They tried to find the hidden angle, the secret profit that humans must be seeking. They found nothing. The humans simply wanted to repay a debt that was almost 50 years old. They remembered a kindness that the Velthari themselves had forgotten. This is economically irrational behavior. The lead Rithani analyst announced to his superiors, "What do the humans gain from this? There must be something we are missing." But there was nothing missing. There was no secret. Humans simply remembered their debts, and they paid them in full, no matter how long it took. On Sketh Prime, the human agricultural ships arrived exactly when promised. The terraforming specialists got to work immediately. The synthetic grain flowed into Velthari storage facilities. Vex single quotes NARI watched the human workers from a balcony overlooking the ruined domes. Beside them stood a young human woman named Director Tara Nguyen, who led the relief effort. "I still do not understand," Vexnari admitted. "Your people work so hard for us. You have given us so much. And you truly expect nothing in return?" Tara looked at the elder with a gentle smile. "We expect you to survive. We expect you to rebuild. And maybe someday, when some other species is in trouble and has nowhere to turn, we expect you to remember what it felt like when someone helped you for no reason at all." Vexnari was quiet for a long time. When they finally spoke, their voice was thick with emotion. "We will remember," they promised. "We will remember forever." And across the galaxy, other species began to whisper among themselves. Perhaps the humans were not so strange after all. Perhaps they knew something that older and wiser species had forgotten long ago. Perhaps kindness was not weakness. Perhaps mercy was not foolishness. Perhaps remembering favors and repaying debts was the wisest thing any species could do. The galaxy was beginning to notice. The humans and the humans were just getting started. 100 years had passed since humanity saved the Velthari from starvation. In that time, the story had spread to every corner of known space. But it was not just one story anymore. It was dozens. It was hundreds. Every species had tales to tell about the strange humans and their endless memory for kindness. Archivist Morath was a Silurian, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. The Silurians resembled tall, thin creatures with skin like aged parchment and eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. Morath had spent 300 years studying alien cultures, and in all that time, nothing had puzzled them quite like the humans. They sat in their study on the Silurian homeworld, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from across the galaxy. Each display told a different story. Each story was about humans remembering something that everyone else had forgotten. The first display showed a Draven merchant named Zul'Kan. He was a trader from a minor species that most of the galaxy ignored. 2 centuries ago, Zul'Kan had encountered a lost human scout ship in an asteroid field. The human pilot was young and confused, her navigation systems damaged. Zul'Kan had given her directions to the nearest space station and thought nothing more of it. 50 years later, Zul'Kan's grandchildren received a message from Earth. The human government was offering the entire Zul'Kan family exclusive trade rights with human colonies. No other Draven family would receive such privileges. When the grandchildren asked why, they were told about their ancestors' small act of kindness to a lost pilot. The trade rights had now been in effect for 200 years. The Zul'Kan family had become the wealthiest Draven in history, all because one merchant had given directions to a stranger. The second display showed a Korvathi engineer named Celis. The Korvathi were brilliant inventors, but terrible at social connections. Celis had been working at a space station when she noticed a human child crying in a corridor. The child had dropped her toy, a small mechanical bird that played music. The toy was broken beyond the ability of the child's parents to fix it. Celis had spent 15 minutes repairing the toy. She had handed it back to the child and watched her smile return. Then Celis had forgotten the entire incident. 20 years later, Celis received a notification that a human foundation had fully funded her research into faster-than-light communications. The grant was worth more money than Celis had ever imagined. She had never applied for this grant. She had never even heard of the foundation before. When she investigated, she learned that the foundation had been created by the family of that crying child. The family had searched for years to find the Korvathi engineer who had fixed their daughter's toy. They wanted to repay the kindness. They wanted to help Celis achieve her dreams. Celis went on to revolutionize galactic communications. Her research changed how species talk to each other across the stars. And it all began because she fixed a child's toy. The third display showed a Theshan soldier named Korath. The Theshans were proud warriors who valued strength above all else. Korath had been wounded in a battle on a distant moon and left behind by his own forces. He was dying of thirst when he encountered a human marine, who was equally stranded. The human had only enough water for one person. Without hesitation, he shared it with Korath. They both survived long enough to be rescued. Korath returned to his people and eventually died of old age, as all Theshans do, but the human remembered 30 years after Korath's death. His family received an invitation to relocate to a human colony world. They were offered full citizenship, free housing, and education for their children. When they asked why, they were told about a moment on a distant moon when a dying soldier shared water with a stranger. Korath's family now lived better lives than most Theshans. His grandchildren grew up among humans, learning their ways, carrying their values forward. The debt had been repaid. The kindness had been remembered. Archivist Mora stared at all these stories and tried to make sense of them. In their 300 years of study, they have never encountered anything like this. Most species forgot small kindnesses within days. Some remembered for years, but humans remembered forever. They passed the memories down through generations. They turned single moments of mercy into debts that lasted centuries. Morath began writing a research paper. They titled it Reciprocity as Religion, the Human Phenomenon. The paper spread quickly through academic circles, then into government briefings, then into common knowledge across the galaxy. The conclusion was simple but profound. Humans possessed an almost pathological inability to leave debts unpaid. They did not see kindness as a transaction. They saw it as a sacred bond. When someone helped a human, they became part of a chain of obligation that stretched back to the beginning of human history and forward into the endless future. Commander Lisa Cho read Morath's paper while sitting on the bridge of the patrol vessel Relentless. She was 50 years old, a career officer who had spent her life protecting human shipping lanes. She had never thought much about her species' reputation. She just did her job and tried to do it well. But now she understood something important. Every human was an ambassador. Every act of kindness received was a debt to be repaid. Every act of kindness given was an investment in the future. A message arrived at her console. It was from a Draven named Zul'Kan IV, great-grandson of the original merchant who had helped that lost pilot so long ago. He was sending her a gift. The gift arrived the next day by special courier. It was a ceremonial blade, ancient and beautiful, passed down through the Zul'Kan family for generations. A note accompanied it. My ancestor told stories of human honor, the note read. He said that humans were different from other species. He said that helping a human was like planting a seed that would grow into a forest. I did not believe him. I thought he was just a sentimental old trader. Lisa kept reading. But then I did business with human merchants. I saw how they kept their promises. I saw how they remembered old debts that others would have forgotten. I saw how they treated my family with respect because of something my ancestor did 200 years ago. The note ended simply. I believe him now. Please accept this blade as a gift from my family to yours. May your descendants carry it with pride, as a symbol of the bond between our peoples. Lisa held the blade carefully. It was lighter than it looked, perfectly balanced, clearly made by a master craftsman. She walked to her quarters and placed it in a display case that already held a dozen similar gifts from a dozen different species. Each gift represented a story. Each story represented a debt remembered, a kindness repaid, a bond that stretched across the stars and the years. Across the galaxy, other species were taking notice. The Rithani hegemony, always calculating, always strategic, began quietly helping humans in small ways. They wanted to test the pattern. They wanted to see if the stories were true. The stories were true. Every small favor the Rithani did was remembered. Every kindness was logged in human databases. Every debt was marked for eventual repayment. Some species saw opportunity in this. If humans repaid favors so reliably, then doing favors for humans was a sound investment. Help them once, and they would help you forever. Other species saw danger. Humans were gathering allies faster than any species in galactic history. They were building a network of loyalty and obligation that spanned the known universe. What would happen when that network became powerful enough to challenge the existing order? But a few wise observers saw something else entirely. They saw a species that had discovered a fundamental truth that others had forgotten. Trust was valuable. Loyalty was precious. Kindness was not weakness, but strength. Archivist Morath finished their paper and sent it to the Galactic Academic Network. The final paragraph read, "Perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans is not their memory for kindness, but their willingness to extend kindness first. They do not wait for others to help them. They help freely, generously, without calculation. And then they remember. They remember everything. In a galaxy built on suspicion and self-interest, the humans have discovered that being trustworthy is the greatest advantage of all. The galaxy was watching. The galaxy was learning. And slowly, carefully, the galaxy was beginning to change. 300 years had passed since humanity first reached the stars. In that time, they had grown from newcomers to something the galaxy had never seen before. They were the moral center of an entire civilization. Chancellor Derek Okonkwo stood at the podium of the Galactic High Council. Behind him sat representatives from over 200 species. Some had been traveling between stars for millennia before humans learned to make fire. Some had built empires that spanned 1,000 worlds. Some had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations that humans had never even heard of. But today, all of them looked to the human chancellor for guidance. The matter before the council was unprecedented. The Hollow, the ancient terror that had nearly destroyed the Silurians, had returned once more. But this time, they did not come to conquer. They came to beg. The voice of the Hollow stood in the center of the chamber. It was a being of shadow and strange angles, difficult to look at directly. Its form seemed to shift and flow like smoke in a wind that no one else could feel. When it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have wandered in darkness for 200 years," the voice said. "Since the humans drove us from Silurian space, we have had time to think. We have had time to change. We are not what we once were." The chamber was silent. Every eye, every sensor, every form of perception was focused on this creature from nightmare. "We consumed worlds because we knew nothing else," the voice continued. "We were hungry, and we fed. We were afraid, and we destroyed. But in the darkness, away from all living things, we learned to see ourselves as others see us. We learned shame. We learned regret." The voice turned slowly, looking at each species in turn. Its form seemed to tremble, as if the effort of speaking was almost too much to bear. "We wish to join the Galactic Collective. We wish to make amends. We wish to be part of something greater than ourselves, something that is not just hunger and fear." The Ridhani representative was the first to speak. Her voice was cold and hard. "You destroyed 14 of our colony worlds in the third expansion. You killed billions of our people. You expect us to forgive that?" The Kovathi ambassador rose next. "You consumed our research stations and set our scientific progress back by centuries. How can we ever trust you?" One by one, species voiced their objections. The Hollow had hurt too many, killed too many, destroyed too much. The scars ran too deep. The memories were too fresh, even after millennia. The vote was held. The result was overwhelming. Nearly every species voted against admitting the Hollow. Only humanity abstained. The voice of the Hollow seemed to shrink in on itself. Its form grew darker, smaller, like a creature accepting its death sentence. "We understand," it said softly. "We will return to the darkness. We will not trouble you again." Then Chancellor Okonkwo raised his hand. "Wait," he said. His voice was calm, but carried across the entire chamber. "Humanity wishes to speak before this matter is concluded." The voice paused. The assembled representatives turned to look at the human chancellor. His face was serene, his posture relaxed, but his eyes held something that made even the oldest species pay attention. Derek reached into his pocket and produced a small data chip. He inserted it into the podium, and a holographic document appeared above him. It was old, the format outdated by generations, but the words were still clear. 200 years ago, Derek began. A single Hollow scout vessel encountered a damaged human exploration ship in deep space. The human crew was dying. Their life support had failed. They had no hope of rescue. The chamber was utterly silent. The Hollow pilot could have destroyed them. It could have consumed them as its kind had consumed so many before. But it did not. Instead, it towed the human ship to safety. It left them within range of a human outpost, where they were eventually rescued. Then the Hollow pilot vanished into the void without a word. Derek looked around the chamber. His eyes settled on the voice of the Hollow. "We do not know the pilot's name. We never will. We never found them, never had the chance to thank them. But we know what they did. We know that in the darkness between stars, one being from a species of monsters chose mercy instead of hunger. One being chose to help instead of destroy. He paused. His voice grew softer, but somehow more powerful. One act of mercy. One choice made by one being in the cold and silent void. And we remember. We have remembered for 200 years. We will remember forever. The voice of the hollow stirred. Its form seemed to shiver, as if struck by something it did not understand. You remember that? It whispered. After everything we have done, you remember one moment of kindness? Derek smiled. It was the same smile that humans had been giving to shocked aliens for 3 centuries, ever since Captain Danny Vance filed his first incident report in the Outer Reach. We always remember, Derek said. That is who we are. He turned to face the assembled representatives. Humanity changes its vote. We vote yes to admitting the Hollow to the Galactic Collective. The chamber erupted in shock. Representatives shouted objections. Ancient grudges were voiced, old wounds reopened. The chaos seemed about to tear the council apart, but then something strange happened. The Velthari representative rose. Elder Cricksteel VII, descendant of the counselor who had saved the Starward Bound all those centuries ago, spoke with a voice like cracking ice. The humans saved my ancestors when we were starving. They remembered a debt from 50 years before. They gave everything to help us when no one else would. The elder paused. Humanity is calling in that debt now. The Velthari change our vote. We vote yes. The Silurian representative stood next. Remembrancer Yith III, descended from the elder who had witnessed the battle of Silurian space, spoke in a trembling voice. The humans defied the collective to save us. They lost half their fleet protecting our world. They asked only that we remember, that we pass on the gift of memory. They took a deep breath. The Silurians change our vote. We vote yes. One by one, species that owed debts to humanity came forward. The Draven, whose merchant ancestor had given directions to a lost pilot. The Golvathi, whose engineer had fixed a child's toy. The Deshans, whose soldier had shared water with a dying stranger. Each species told their story. Each species called in the debt they owed. Not as a threat, but as a request. A plea. An act of trust. You helped us once, they said to the other species. Now help us? Give the Hollow a chance. Not because they deserve it, but because someone always has to take the first step. Someone always has to remember that kindness is possible. The vote was held again. This time, it passed. By the narrowest margin in collective history, the Hollow were admitted. After the session ended, the voice of the Hollow approached Chancellor Okonkwo. Its form was still trembling, still uncertain, still not quite believing what had happened. Why? It asked. Its voice was barely a whisper. After everything my kind has done, why did humanity speak for us? Derek looked at this being from the darkness, this creature that had once been the terror of the galaxy. He saw the confusion in its shifting form. He saw the desperate need to understand. He shrugged. It was the same gesture that Danny Vance had made 300 years ago, standing on the bridge of a broken cargo ship in the Outer Reach. Someone did us a kindness once, Derek said simply. A Hollow pilot, alone in the void, chose to help when they could have destroyed. We remember that. We always remember. The voice was silent for a long moment. When it finally spoke, its words carried something that might have been wonder, or perhaps hope. The galaxy told us that humans were strange, it said. They told us you were irrational, that you placed too much weight on small things, that you remembered what should be forgotten and forgave what should never be forgiven. Derek waited. They did not tell us, the voice continued, its form slowly brightening, that you were miracles. Derek reached out and touched the shifting shadow of the Hollow's form. It was cold, like touching the space between stars, but somehow the cold did not feel hostile anymore. We are not miracles, he said gently. We just remember. And now so do you. The voice seemed to understand. Its form stabilized, grew steadier, grew more real. Yes, it said slowly. Now we remember too. And we will never forget what you did for us today. Never. Derek smiled. Good. That is all we ask. Remember this moment. Remember this chance. And someday, when someone else needs help, when someone else has no hope, remember what it felt like when a stranger believed in you. Throughout the galaxy, news of the vote spread faster than light itself. Every species heard what had happened. They heard how humanity had spoken for the monsters. They heard how debts had been called in, how favors had been remembered, how the chain of kindness had stretched from a broken cargo ship 3 centuries ago to the halls of the Galactic High Council. And slowly, carefully, a new saying began to spread among traders, diplomats, explorers, and wanderers. Be kind to a human, they said. They will remember. Be cruel to a human. They will remember that too. But mercy, mercy they repay 1,000-fold. Unto the last generation, species that had known only war and mistrust for thousands of years began to ask themselves a question they had never considered before. What if we remembered too? What if we kept track of every kindness, every favor, every moment of mercy shown to us? What if we repaid our debts no matter how long it took?